The South China Sea is a vital artery for global trade, serving as one of the world's busiest and most strategic waterways. Every day, thousands of ships, ranging from massive container vessels to oil tankers, navigate these waters, connecting Asia with markets in Europe, the Middle East, and the Americas. With over $3 trillion in commerce passing through each year, the South China Sea is not just a regional concern, but a global one. The uninterrupted flow of goods, energy supplies, and raw materials through this maritime corridor is essential for the stability of the world economy. Beneath its waves lie rich fishing grounds that feed millions and suspected reserves of oil and gas that could power economies for decades. For coastal communities, these resources are a lifeline, supporting livelihoods and national development. The sea's bounty has made it a focal point for both opportunity and competition. The region's stability directly impacts the global economy and supply chains. Any disruption, whether from conflict, piracy, or political tension, could send shockwaves through international markets, affecting everything from fuel prices to the availability of consumer goods. At the heart of the tension is a fundamental disagreement over control. Several countries, including Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and the Philippines, have overlapping claims, but China's is by far the most sweeping, covering nearly the entire sea. China's 9-line claim cuts deep into the exclusive economic zones of its neighbors, including the Philippines, which calls its portion the West Philippine Sea. These overlapping claims have led to frequent standoffs, confrontations at sea, and a complex web of diplomatic negotiations. The dispute is not just about territory, it's a clash between international law, championed by the Philippines and its allies who cite the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and China's historical claims, which are rooted in centuries-old maps and narratives. For the Philippines, it's about defending sovereignty, protecting its people's access to resources, and upholding the rule of law in international waters. Filipino fishermen and naval patrols are often on the front lines, facing challenges as they assert their nation's rights. For China, it's about regional dominance, securing strategic interests, and projecting power far beyond its shores. The South China Sea is seen as a core national interest, central to China's vision of its place in the world. The world watches closely, as the outcome of this dispute will shape not only the future of the South China Sea, but also the rules-based international order that underpins global peace and prosperity. China's claim to nearly the entire South China Sea is anchored in the ambiguous 9-line, first drawn in the 1940s. This sweeping boundary, sketched with little explanation, has become the focal point of one of the world's most complex and dangerous maritime disputes. The 9-line cuts through waters claimed by several Southeast Asian nations, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei, all of whom rely on these rich fishing grounds and vital shipping lanes for their economies and food security. Beijing's strategy is to assert control without open conflict, using gray zone tactics, deploying Coast Guard and maritime militia disguised as fishing boats to harass rivals. These vessels often operate just below the threshold of war, creating constant pressure on neighboring countries, while avoiding direct military confrontation. The presence of these ships is a daily reminder of China's intent to dominate the region, and their actions are carefully calibrated to provoke, intimidate, and exhaust opponents. These actions blur the line between civilian and military, allowing China to deny responsibility, while steadily expanding its presence. By using civilian-looking vessels for military purposes, China creates confusion and complicates any international response. This ambiguity is a deliberate tactic, making it difficult for other nations to justify escalation or intervention, and leaving local fishermen and coast guards in a constant state of uncertainty and risk. China also uses lawfare, applying its own laws to international waters, and ignoring the 2016 Hague Tribunal ruling that invalidated its claims. By unilaterally enforcing Chinese regulations in disputed areas, Beijing seeks to legitimize its control and undermine international legal norms. This legal maneuvering is paired with diplomatic pressure and propaganda, further complicating efforts to resolve the dispute peacefully. Artificial islands, now militarized with runways and missiles, serve as forward bases for Chinese power projection. These outposts allow China to extend its reach deep into the South China Sea, supporting surveillance, air patrols, and rapid military deployment. The transformation of reefs into military fortresses has fundamentally altered the region's security landscape, raising the stakes for any potential confrontation. Filipino fishermen are blocked from traditional grounds, and Manila's resupply missions to outposts like Second Thomas Shoal face constant harassment. These aggressive tactics threaten the livelihoods of thousands of coastal families and put Philippine sovereignty to the test. Each encounter at sea is a reminder of the growing imbalance of power and the daily risks faced by those who challenge China's claims. China's incremental encroachment has shifted the status quo, making the dispute a daily reality for those who depend on the sea. The tension is felt not just by governments and militaries, but by ordinary people whose lives and futures are tied to these contested waters. For many, the South China Sea is no longer just a map or a headline, it's a battleground for survival. The result, a persistent, high-stakes standoff just short of open war, where every day brings new risks and the possibility of escalation looms over the horizon. The Philippines' 2016 legal victory at The Hague affirmed its rights, but China's rejection of the ruling forced Manila to adapt. Under President Marcos Jr., the Philippines now pursues assertive transparency, publicizing Chinese harassment with embedded journalists and real-time evidence. This information campaign aims to rally global support and expose China's tactics. Manila is also modernizing its military, acquiring asymmetric capabilities like the BrahMos missile and advanced radar from Japan. The most visible symbol of resistance is the BRP Sierra Madre, a grounded ship on Second Thomas Shoal, where Filipino Marines hold out against Chinese blockades. Dangerous resupply missions to this outpost have become a test of Philippine resolve. Manila's message: it will not abandon its sovereign rights, no matter the pressure. Knowing it can't face China alone, the Philippines is building a coalition of like-minded nations to uphold international law. Revitalizing its alliance with the United States is central, but Manila is also deepening ties with Japan, Australia, Canada, and European partners. These relationships bring intelligence sharing, joint exercises, and greater access for allied forces to Philippine bases. Every act of Chinese coercion pushes Manila closer to its allies, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of partnership and deterrence. The goal: make any attack on the Philippines a challenge to the global order, not just a bilateral dispute. By internationalizing the conflict, Manila leverages collective strength to offset its geographic vulnerability. This networked approach is its main answer to the power imbalance with China. The United States stands as the Philippines' only formal treaty ally, a relationship that has shaped the security landscape of Southeast Asia for over 70 years. This alliance is not just symbolic, it is a cornerstone of regional stability, especially as tensions rise in the South China Sea. As the main military counterweight to China in the region, the U.S. presence is both a reassurance to allies and a clear signal to potential adversaries. American warships and aircraft are a regular sight, projecting power and upholding international law. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty, a historic pact, now explicitly covers attacks on Philippine forces, vessels, or aircraft anywhere in the South China Sea. This update reflects the evolving nature of threats and the need for a united response. For Beijing, this raises the stakes considerably, as any hostile action could trigger a direct U.S. response. The South China Sea has become a flashpoint, with overlapping claims and growing military activity. U.S. Navy warships regularly conduct freedom of navigation operations, sailing through contested waters to challenge excessive maritime claims and demonstrate commitment to open sea lanes. These operations are not just about presence, they are about upholding the rules-based order and asserting international rights in the face of growing Chinese militarization of artificial islands. Beyond patrols, the U.S. invests in upgrading Philippine military bases, enhancing their capacity to host American forces and respond quickly to crises. Pre-positioning equipment and supplies ensures that both nations can mount a rapid joint response to any threat, strengthening deterrence and operational readiness. The annual Balikatan exercises have grown in scale and complexity, now focusing heavily on maritime defense, amphibious operations, and interoperability. These drills send a powerful message of unity and preparedness. While Washington's support is vital for Philippine security, both the U.S. and the Philippines are keen to avoid direct conflict with China, seeking to balance deterrence with diplomacy. Beijing, however, accuses the U.S. of interference and warns against what it sees as encirclement and provocation in its own backyard. Yet, the enduring American presence remains a key deterrent, reassuring allies and complicating any plans for unilateral action. The risk is ever present. Any miscalculation or unintended clash could quickly escalate, turning a regional dispute into a crisis between superpowers, with consequences felt far beyond the South China Sea. Beyond the US, the Philippines has built a powerful network with Japan, Australia, and other partners, often called the Squad. Japan provides ships, radar, and now participates in joint military exercises, deepening its security role. Australia has signed new defense pacts and joined naval drills, seeing Philippine security as vital to its own interests. These bilateral ties connect to broader frameworks like the Quad, which includes India and aims to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific. India has supplied the BrahMos missile, and trilateral security talks are underway. This growing web of cooperation signals a regional consensus. China's actions are a shared challenge. The result is a multilateral front that complicates Beijing's calculations and strengthens Manila's position. The South China Sea is now a theater of constant confrontation, where every encounter risks escalation. Resupply missions to the BRP Sierra Madre are flashpoints, with Chinese ships using water cannons and dangerous maneuvers to block Philippine vessels. Each successful mission is a hard-won victory for Manila, but the risk of a deadly incident is ever present. In August 2025, a Chinese Navy destroyer collided with a Philippine patrol vessel, marking a dangerous escalation. The involvement of warships signals Beijing's willingness to use military force, drawing international condemnation. In response, Manila and its allies have increased joint exercises, adding more ships to an already tense environment. The sea is now crowded with rival patrols, each testing the other's resolve in a high-stakes game. A lasting peace is elusive because the dispute is zero-sum. Both sides claim sovereignty over the same waters, with no room for compromise. For China, control of the sea is non-negotiable, tied to its national ambitions and security. For the Philippines, surrendering its rights would mean economic loss and political humiliation. China's dismissal of the 2016 arbitral award and continued militarization have destroyed trust. Beijing prefers managed tension, using its power to create new facts on the water while avoiding decisive resolution. Manila, left with little choice, seeks allies and manages the conflict, resulting in a tense stalemate. The risk of conflict remains ever present, with no clear path to settlement. The South China Sea remains a flashpoint, its future uncertain. The Philippines-China dispute is set for a prolonged standoff, with both sides testing each other's limits. The best hope is for crisis management and de-escalation, even if the core dispute remains unresolved. Codes of conduct and restraint could lower the risk of deadly incidents, but require real commitment from both sides. Any fatal collision could trigger the US-Philippines Defense Treaty, risking a wider war. The international community's ability to uphold a rules-based order will be tested. Manila's coalition building is a model for smaller states facing larger powers. If deterrence fails, might makes right could become the new norm in the Indo-Pacific. The South China Sea will remain a barometer of global order for years to come.